Okay, so in front of me I have three little handheld devices. They're little Linux-based single board computers. They're powered by a JZ4770, which is a dual-core 65 nanometer SOC, which is pretty ancient compared to today's stuff with like 5 nanometer and whatnot. But these all have one thing in common besides the fact that they're all made by Anbernic, and that is that they are all variants of the RG350 by Anbernic. And so I'm going to compare these a little bit, and if you are in the market for one of these in 2022, what you should know about each of them. And first thing we're going to get to is the screens. Okay, so the most important thing to me with playing these things is the screen quality. Not only the resolution, but the color and saturation of the screen, because that's what you're looking at the entire time. So looking at something pleasant while you're playing the game is pretty big on my list. So the smallest one right here is the RG280M. This one right here is the 300X because it's a 3-inch screen. This one's a 2.8-inch screen, so it's 280, 300. And then on the far right is the RG350M. And so we'll go through the resolutions of each of these. And I've got my... Okay, so starting with the RG280M, it has a 4:3 aspect ratio, but it uses rectangular pixels. So that means that it's going to have a weird resolution for that aspect ratio, and it has a 480 by 320 aspect ratio. I will correct that if that's wrong. And both the RG350M and the 300X are 640 by 480, and that's why I bought each of them, because I just prefer as high as pixel density as you can get, and the RG350 and 350p have one of the lower resolution screens, and I don't like that. I prefer 640 by 480 minimum. Okay, so we got the resolution out of the way. Color is going to go to the 350M, with the 280M being a very close second. The 280M is closer to the 350M than the 300X is closer to the 280M. Because not only bright, because the 300X does not get very bright. It is not, I'd say it's about 3/4 as bright as the 280M and 350M are at max brightness. And secondly, it's very cool. You can probably tell that in the video. It has, oh, they're going off. Well, that'll get into the blacks. Well, you can't really see the blacks unless I can change the ISO on the fly. I can change the ISO on the fly, but not bright enough. There we go. Yeah, that'll give you a good idea of the blacks. Unfortunately, it doesn't look that way, but this one has the deepest blacks, followed by the 300X, and then the 280M at the very bottom with blacks. So 350M being the best, 280M being close second, and the 300X color-wise, meh. The fact that it has I think I would trade the fact that it has the 480 screen, 480p for the 280M with its lower resolution, just because the colors are so much better on this. And then the 350M is the best of both worlds. You get the 480 resolution with the colors, with better colors than the 280M. We'll get back into... Yep. So screen quality, it's going to go 350M, 280M, and 300X. And there's not one way to... Well, the 350M is definitively better than both the 280M and the 300X. But the 300X 280M, it's up to you about the resolution. If you can deal with the lower resolution to get the better color quality, that's up to you. But if you'd prefer higher resolution, sharper pixels that are square pixels instead of rectangular pixels, but it's dimmer and has cooler colors. So yeah, that's the screens. I'm going to make sure I got the resolution on the 280M right, and then we're going to talk about the other stuff. Okay, so now we're going to get into the physical of the... Oh, and I forgot to say the 280M, I think I said 480 by 320. It's 320 by 480, or at least that's what the spec says. Anyways, It's a 3:2 resolution, but the pixel aspect ratio is 4:3. So sorry if this is confusing. It's a 4:3 console. So don't think it's 3:2. It's a 4:3 console, which is perfect for all your favorite home consoles. So getting into it, let's start off with the 280M since he's the little guy, and we'll build up to the 300X. So let's talk about ergonomics. It's got that, it's a rectangle. That's Anbernic's favorite thing, is rectangle. Not that it's a bad thing, because it is nice to slip into your pocket. That is why I have this guy. It's not a crazy big shape, and it slides into your pocket just fine. It's a little bit thicker than a phone, but smaller in size. The buttons and the D-pad are a little bit up too high, so when I'm playing it, I kind of have to hold it like this, where instead of pushing down on the bottom, because you can see where, so I have to kind of do it like this, which isn't a bad thing. It's just something to note. And people talk about the inline shoulder buttons, complain about them, prefer stat. I like the inline shoulder buttons, especially on something like this. It makes it slim. I don't know why people, because look, you can use the outside of your, going through the dang menu. You can use the outsides with the inside of your finger and the tip of your finger on that. So I don't know what the deal is with that. The power button is on this side, which is awful because on the other two consoles, it's on this side. So the power button acts as a function button, and so I find myself constantly manipulating the volume button. This one has a joystick. It's a good joystick. It's Anbernic's little, joysticks they use in everything, except for the newer ones. Clicks just fine. I don't really see the need of having one joystick over no joystick. If you're gonna have a joystick, have two. That's my opinion. Obviously it doesn't really matter. There are a few circumstances where I prefer a joystick over a directional pad, even if the joystick is just mapping a D-pad, such as like R-Type and Gradius, and racing games like Gran Turismo. Obviously you're not using the right joystick. So yeah, the joystick's there. It's not a big, to me, it's not a deal breaker, but you might say, well, I need the joystick for some PS1 games and some, sideways shooters and some 3D games. And that's fine. But to me, joystick's not a big deal. Buttons. The buttons on the metal devices are awesome. The 280M buttons are the reason that I bought a 350M, because these guys are definitely outdated in 2020, the end of 2022, going into 2023. Unless you get these on a deal, there's no reason to buy them. Anyways, the metal consoles have these awesome buttons with great feedback, because it's using, the metal as the sort of the backboard, even though the PCB is between them. Anyways, the D-pad, fantastic. Love it. Very tactile. Buttons, great. They're tactile. All the buttons are great. The shoulder ones are pretty much the same for all Anbernic devices across the board. They're good. I mean, they're not as good as great, but they're better than good, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love the ergos of the 280V, even though these are a little up close. But when you do it like this, you've got good clearance for the speakers. People don't like the headphone jack on top. It doesn't matter to me because I don't really use the headphone jack. I don't like wearing headphones in public. And in private, there's, it's not likely I'll be using headphones. It's nice that they have the headphone jack. So when you do need it, it's there. But the placement of it, to me, because I don't use it that much, is not that big of a deal. It has an OTG. I don't understand why they do two of these. They do them on all their consoles. And I mean, if you use them, that's fine. But I don't know why you couldn't just use the one and then have it into a splitter. But if you need a keyboard or a drive reader or a card reader, whatever, there's that, and then you can charge. So yeah, there's two ports. This one, as you'll notice, doesn't have HDMI out. And most, I think all RG350 devices except for the 280s. This is the brother to the 280V. I believe all except for the 280s have HDMI out, so that's something to consider. And we'll talk more about HDMI out when we get to 300X. So yeah, that's the two. I don't know if there's anything to talk. Reset buttons on the bottom, power buttons on this side. As I said, it's got these little rubber grippies that some people say they don't like. I could take them or leave them. Oh shoot, really doesn't matter to me. If they're there, they're not. I guess it's nice that it doesn't move when you set it down on a flat surface like that, but not that big of a deal to me. So, buttons great, shape's okay, it's comfortable enough, the rounded edges make it good, it being metal is nice, but it is heavy. It is a good bit heavier than the 300X, so you need to take that into account. I don't know the weight of it, but, yeah, there's that. Also, it has 2 SD slots, so yeah, we'll move on to the 300X. Okay, so I talked about the shoulder buttons, and I'm going to jump into that on these. They're good. Oh, shoot. I don't like them as much as I like the other standard Anbernic shoulder buttons. This one's shaped like a rectangle. I like where these buttons are put, like they're in the middle. Obviously, the 280V couldn't have them in the middle because it has a joystick, but take that into mind. I like where the buttons are. This one holds in my hand better, and it's not that much. I don't think it's that much physical. It's just a tad bit taller and just the same width, so it's just a tad bit taller. I think it's just where the buttons are actually placed. But the buttons being all wonky on this way, I mean, I don't prefer that. You don't really notice it when you're playing it, but I mean, I would rather it be normal, like the other, 280V. I'd rather it be like that, but I can't complain. Not a big fan of these start and select buttons. You can hear them shaking. And, I mean, they're very tactile, but I'm not a big fan of them. I think I would have rather just had, like, not on the same side, because I don't like these, how these are on the same side. I'd rather them be up here, just like the 350M. But, yeah. And then the speakers are on the front, they're fine. Shoulder buttons are clickier, but I prefer the shape of the other ones. This one's a lot lighter. It's not that much wider, but it slips into your pocket better than the 280M. Definitely does that better. The buttons are not as good as either of the metal consoles. In fact, they're not as good as most Anbernic consoles, but better than most handheld consoles. I'd say the buttons are good. They're good. They're not great. They're better than good. They're they're good enough. They're fine. It's if you just have this console and nothing else, the buttons will feel fantastic to you. But if you have, these metal Jeez Louise, man. If you have these metal consoles, the buttons are just going to feel meh. Headphone jacks on the bottom, reset buttons on the bottom. Same with the RG280M, 2 OTG. And it fits in the way it fits in my hand, I like it better. So yeah, it's very similar in the form factor of the RG280M. The edges are a little bit sharper, not that it really matters, but I like where the buttons are placed better. And it holds in my hand better. So that's the screen's also flush, which is kind of neat, because you'll get, it's almost, I guess you could call it bezel-less, since it's flush into the system, which is pretty nice if you like that. I really don't care. And now we move on to the king of the RG350 devices, and in my opinion, all the JZ4770 devices. It's a RG350M. Woo! Ergonomics are great. I mean, I don't think it gets better than this, in my opinion. It could be a little bit bigger, ergonomic-wise, but I prefer how small it is because it goes in your pocket easier. Even though she is chonky, it's heavy. I don't know how to describe how heavy it is. It's definitely as heavy as a phone with a big case. It feels great in your hands. The buttons are exactly where they should be, in a similar vein to the 300X, but better. The joysticks are, same joysticks in here. They're good. They got the little clicks. I believe they are the same width. Yes, they are. The same width. Obviously, you can tell it's a little bit taller. That's because it's a bigger screen, bigger device. Man, there's everything that's good about the RG280. This does, and everything good about 300X. This does. The only con is that obviously it's bigger, and that may be a con to you or maybe a pro to you because it is bigger. It handles in your hand better. You can play it for a lot longer. Yeah, it just does everything. Okay, if you don't like the top headphone jack, like in the 280V, then I guess that's a thing, because this one has it on the bottom. On the bottom, just like 280V, reset buttons, 2 speakers. I guess this really is just like the big boy 280. I keep saying 280V. I mean 280M. My bad. Yeah, now I lost my train of thought. So ergonomics, it's great. It's fantastic. I love it. But like I said, it's heavy. So I do want to highlight how good the buttons are on the 350M. These are the best buttons on any console I've ever owned, handheld console. They are just great. It's as good as you can get in my mind. Very tactile, have great feedback. They're better than the 280M, not by much, but they are better. They're just the best. Now let's talk about feature that 300X and the 350M and 300X have over the 280M. That's HDMI output. And unfortunately, really, only the 350M has HDMI output because it just does not work on the 300X. I've tried everything. I even put the firmware drive, which is TF1 and internal, on there, and it'll boot up with it and play it just fine, but it will not output video. So either my console is poopy, or there's a problem with the software. But the 350M with its HDMI out, it's great. I love it. I had it into a computer monitor and outputs 16:9. Depending on the emulator you're using, if you're not using RetroArch, it won't stretch a 4:3 game to 16:9, depending on the emulator. So it would be cool if like the PS1 emulator has widescreen hacks. That'd be really neat, but that's asking a lot for something that's really not worth that kind of time and effort. And then they all have the same battery life, or reported battery life. They're all 250, 2500 milliamp hours. As you can see on the back, 2500. I don't know why they didn't give the 350M a bigger battery, because, I mean, even though they're all running the same CPU or SoC, this one not only has a bigger screen, has a brighter screen, and it's higher pixel density than this screen, which is brighter than this screen. So you're going to burn through the battery life a lot sooner on the 350M. Now, if you're handy, like I am, you could open it up, unplug the 2500 milliamp hour battery that came in it, and probably get you could probably get a 4000 milliamp hour, or more than likely a 3500 milliamp hour battery to fit in here. You could probably get the 351P battery to fit in this thing. So if that's, I doubt you could do that for these two. Even, I don't know why you would want to. They're supposed to be like pocket friendly, but this one should have had a bigger battery. I'm wondering if it's due to the weight they didn't do that, but yeah. I think that's everything. I think we're going to talk about the price now. So, time to talk about price. Now, I'm going to start with the 350M, what price I paid for it, what price you can usually find it for, and what price I think it's worth buying at. And so retail price for these things is what I've seen on AliExpress, or no, I'm sorry, on the Anbernic website is $107.99, I believe, in that neighborhood, about $110. On AliExpress, I saw them for $99.99, but it's right after Cyber Monday, so that could still be the sale price. I paid $90 for it on Amazon. I can't really recommend buying these things on Amazon unless you want to use that return policy, because you will be using that return policy. The only time I've ever gotten lemon handhelds was from Amazon, and it was when they were doing sales. So I'm not going to absolutely say this, but I suspect that when they run sales, they may send out their less than desirable consoles. Because I paid $90 for this, and it has this weird imperfection. If you can kind of see the finger smudges right here, that's on the inside. I can't wipe that off. It has this weird just smudge right there that will not be wiped off. You can see this line right here where it stops. Yeah, that's all on the inside. I don't know why, but I figured it was laminated, so it's, yeah, you can see where it's like kind of like a, you know, I would assume it's laminated, so I don't know why that is, but it's I got this one that was bad, and I got 280M that originally was completely malfunctioning, not to the point where you couldn't play it, but it would crash, and it didn't do a lot of the features that they're supposed to do, and it had a couple of dead pixels on it. This one has a couple on it. This one has one, I think. Either it has one or there's a speck of dust under the glass lens. I can't tell which that is, but yeah. And then 300. This one I bought from Anbernic, and it has been, you know, worry-free. So I paid $90 for this one on Amazon. I would not pay a penny more for this one than it being the JZ4770. You should not be paying more than $100 for JZ4770 in 2022 or 2023. Honestly, $90 is a bit much. Really, it's worth about $80 to $85. I just saw it on sale, and I love the buttons on the 280M, and I've been wanting the 350M because of the screen for a while, because it has a very nice screen. So yeah, we'll get into the 300X now. These guys are great. You can find these usually for $56. At $56, this thing's awesome because of one particular reason, and that is it competes with the Miu Mini at that price. This thing for $50 to $55, incredible deal. I would say buy this over the Miu Mini, specifically for the fact that you can actually find these in stock. I had a Miu Mini, and the sound chip on it fried, and so it didn't output sound to the speaker, which really sucks because I really like the Miu Mini, but I gave that to my little cousin because headphones still worked, and I didn't want to pay the astronomical prices that scalpers were asking for the Miu Mini, and these things are in stock everywhere, and they're usually for about $56. The retail on them, I believe, is $69.99. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so the retail on Anbernic's website is $80, and the retail on AliExpress is $70. On Anbernic, even if you're ordering from China, they get here fast. They have USA shipping on some of their stuff. This one, for example, was shipped through USA. So I would, if it's the same price or similar price from Anbernic as it is AliExpress, I would recommend ordering it from Anbernic. So yeah, do not pay a penny over $60 for this thing. It's a great device at $55, but anything more, it's not there. Not when the Miu Mini exists, because the Miu Mini, in my opinion, is slightly better than this thing. Slightly. Yeah. Okay, and then we have the most controversially priced, in my opinion, because you can find 280Vs and the 300Xs for around $55, which is what you should be paying for a JZ4770 device in 2022. This guy I got for credible sale on Amazon was $55, $54.99, I think, which is great because these things retail for $80 and then they go on sale for $70. I've never seen these cheaper than $70 on Anbernic's website, and I've never seen these cheaper than $70 from a reputable seller on AliExpress than $70. You should not pay more than $70 for this thing, and honestly, $70 is too much. 65, 60, I think, is a good price point. The fact of the matter is that CPU is really holding it back, and if these are both priced the same, I'm gonna say get the 280M. I like the 280M in almost every way over the 300X, except for the things that I talked about. If I could go back in time and buy one of them for the same price, I'd buy the 280M. But anything more than $60 for the 280M, it's not worth it. I'd say get the 280V or the 300X. But if you can find this at the same price as a 300X or 280V, I'd say get the 280M, because this thing's, I love it for what it is. Once again, that being said, these are all really outdated considering they're on 65 nanometer architecture, which is big. So yeah, closing thoughts. As far as the JZ4770s go, the 350M is king, but if you want something that's smaller, more pocketable, obviously I don't have a 280V, can't really compare. The 280M is very similar to the 280V in a lot of ways, but it's still a different thing altogether. So if you're looking for a horizontal pocket-sized device that can emulate up to PS1, I'd say go with these guys. I needed to mention that these are both running on the custom Atom firmware, which is really good because, as you saw, I can put them to sleep. If you're going to get one of these JZ4770s, you have to get the Atom software just for the sleep alone, in my opinion. Because yeah, on the 280M, you can turn the backlight all the way off. But the system's still running. I wonder if you can. You can't see it, but I can see it. I can actually still operate the system with no backlight if I'm using the glare of the light. So the sleep function, it's critical to me. So if you've got one of these, definitely put the 280. Also, it has RetroArch if you do the Atom software, and it runs RetroArch better than the stock firmware. You can use RetroArch on the stock firmware, but it's not as good as it is on the Atom. So yeah, that's my little quick and dirty, well, it's not really quick, but it's my comparison of the Anbernic JZ4770's devices, except for the 280V, the 350, and the 350P.